Hello guys, Romulo Barral here, Everyday Porrada creator. I'm here with two very special guests. You know, they're great fighters, great athletes, but more than that, they're my friend, they're my brothers, and I'm very excited to be talking to them. But before we start, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe for our YouTube channel, and then stay updated in everything that we do here. So today, I'm here with Beneil Dariush and then Marvin Vettori. Let's welcome them. What's up, Benny?
Hey,
How
man.
you doing?
Doing good, man. It's good to be here. Excited for this, man. You know, the everyday Porrada thing. I live it. I live that. So it's for me, it's real.
Yeah, man, I'm just happy to see you again after all this time, man. No, it's great to see you, and great to see that you're well, and yeah, just good catching up with you and Benny. I moved out to Vegas, so I'm just actually seeing Benny since I just saw him yesterday. So yeah, just great catching up with you guys.
Oh, it's amazing to have you guys here. You know, like me and Benny, we go a long time. You know, we're gonna be talking about this here, and then Marvin, pretty much since he moved to America, you know, like, and then talking about the everyday Porrada. Those guys, you know, like in all my life coaching and then training jiu-jitsu, they probably the ones, the more dedicated athletes that I ever been able to train with and coach. You know, like they come to the gym, you know, like they on the top of like a UFC, you know what I mean? Like number 3, number 4, for me they number 1, you know. I'm not even gonna go the rank that they build because I don't believe on those ranks, you know. They already been there, ready to be champions. But more important is the work that they put it, you know. And then, you know, like I want to get really deep onto that with these guys, you know, not only on training, but in the life, you know, like I said, you know, I know them for a while. Let's hear them, you know, like I'm going to start with Benny here just to share with us a little bit, you know, like I'm going to start with Benny because then we can go like, you know,
Yeah,
1,
that's
2,
fine.
and 3.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Good.
So, Benny, just like I think it's gonna be a lot of people in Brazil. Our public, it's mostly in Brazil, you know, and then, you know, like they love the way that you present yourself, you know, like as a true martial arts, respect, loyalty, and then hard work, you know, like not going into trash talk, anything like that. It's just that you put in the work, and then obviously in a fight world, that's all type of you know, like of athletes, you know. I love all of them, you know. I love the way that you go quiet. I love the way that Marvin goes, and then he goes on people's face, and then he tells what, you know, like what he wants to tell, and everybody has their own personality. You know, like I don't know, you know, like if you know, but you have a huge fan base in Brazil, and then let's them hear you a little bit.
Yeah. So for me, Brazil is crazy because some of the people I love the most come from Brazil. You, my coaches, Rafael Cordero, my teammates, like. Brazil has been such a big blessing for me. People always ask me when I do interviews with Brazilian reporters, like, what does Brazil mean to you? And I'm like, how do I put it into words to you guys? Some of the people who have blessed me the most in my life came from Brazil. Like, Brazil for me, obviously I've been there before, but for me, Brazil is like... it's like a second home to me, and I know I'm gonna be fighting a Brazilian soon, so it's a little bit weird, but man, all love for me as far as Brazil goes.
Yeah, no, definitely, you know, like for people that don't know, Marvin, Ben is fighting Charles Oliveira, and then Charles Oliveira, obviously, he's a huge Brazilian hero, and then, you know, many people is going to be, probably most of the Brazilian is going to be cheering for him, you know, but like I can guarantee that whatever the outcome on the fight, I'm true believe that Benny, sorry Charles, but you know, like you're gonna get smashed, and then you know, like people would respect that, and then you know, Benny your fan base is gonna be even bigger in Brazil.
Yeah, I mean that's
the
kind of
sport, right?
you know that's the whole thing. And I agree with you. I think Charles is a hero from the way he came up through all the struggles he had in his fights. Like his career in the beginning, he came out so bright. And then he had a couple of tough fights. And then at some point, people were like, okay, this guy's done. And then he came back and became champion. And at one point, they were comparing him to Khabib. They're like, who's the GOAT of the lightweight? So For me to have this opportunity to fight this guy, and I truly believe I'm going to beat this guy, it's, man, what an opportunity. I'm excited for this.
For sure. And then Marvin, you know, like I've been know Marvin for a long time too, you know, extremely hard work guy, you know, like funny to be around, great energy, you know, like as far as training, you know, like I still remember, you know, like on top of UFC, and then I coach many guys, you know, like it things that amazing me on those guys, you know, I go coach, you know, like I go to the jiu-jitsu, those guys, they driving like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then, you know, like they coming in, they there before guys that supposedly want to be champions, you know, like they the last ones to leave, and then the ones to like ask me what's next, what I do next, you know. It's the work ethic that put people on the place that they are now. Marvin, you know, talk a little bit about Brazil too, you know, like I think Italians and Brazilians, they're very similar, you know, like they're very intense, we talk loud, we like to eat good food. How's your relationship with the Brazilians? I know you have some beef with some Brazilians, you know, especially someone from my city.
Well, no, I mean, I actually never been to Brazil, and it's one of those places I definitely want to go ASAP. You know, Brazil in our sport is massive. Jiu-Jitsu, MMA is massive. So even when I moved to London, I remember I came the very first time, I'm going to shout him out right now, with Luis Tosta, which was my Jiu-Jitsu coach back in the days. And he's Brazilian. So I always had a lot of Brazilian friends, obviously even here at Kings and obviously you. And Brazil has always been a massive part in our sport. So I always got to know a lot of Brazilians. So it's amazing. Like, I mean, you know, I connect well with Brazilians for sure. And then yeah, but I've actually never been. Then had some other encounters with the other sides of not men but women of Brazil, which are also amazing. So you know, like Brazil, I can say nothing but great things about Brazil for now. So
we were talking about Boachinha actually earlier. Man, this guy, I thought. Yeah, I thought Marvin's going to be
Twitter.
pissed. And Marvin's like, no, he's got the best Twitter. I don't know how he comes up with this stuff. Bro. I was surprised. Like, I was like, okay, Marvin, I didn't expect that from you, you know?
Okay, going into that fight is the only guy that, you know, like, you see them coming up. You obviously observe, like, the first few fighters in the rankings, all the top 5, all the top 10. You're going to fight them, so you're going to know about them. He's the only guy that going into the fight, I didn't know what to expect. As a guy, like, this guy was so weird that I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck? Like, he's coming up to me like he was saying things like, he was like surprised that he has to make weight. Oh, I have to make weight? You know? But then you talk with other guys that I know that they talk like, you know, in more privately, and they say he's actually a smart guy. Like, I mean, like, he doesn't come out like a smart guy, but I know the media, like, sometimes, I don't know. They trick you into like...
Bro, he has to be smart. He got you to fight him when he was 220.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that fight though, I got paid like probably 5x what he got paid. So
that's good, yeah.
But, no, he's definitely like super funny, yeah.
No, you know, like a crazy thing about Borrachinha is, you know, I never met him. He's from Belo Horizonte, you know, like where I grew up training with, you know, like he has trained with my professor Chich, you know, he has trained with Philippe. And then the craziest thing, man, you know, like what I heard, he's actually super respectful. Yeah, you know what I mean? That he comes to the gym, he's like, he listens, he's like, respect everybody. And then I never met him in person. I got scared when he fought you, you know, yeah. I swear, you know, like it was a small cage, you know, like, and then I still remember, you know, like Marvin, you know, like is cutting weight, and then Marvin, you big, you know, but like you like close to 185, and then he's like, oh, do I have to make weight? And then the fight was 205, so he's cutting weight for 205, so probably he was
100 kilos. He was like, no more. He was 226 pounds. So that means it's like 102 kilos, 103 kilos.
Man, you know, like I just remember, you know, like when he come into the cage, the small cage, I'm like, look, you know, he walked to the cage, and he looks like massive, you know, he did like this. And then I'm like, he did that for me? I'm like, I think you're looking at me. Yeah. I got a little scared. I'm like, I'm glad that I'm not fighting this guy.
I was like, Marvin, oh, he's got nothing. He's going to give up the first round. He's just playing games. But I'm like, oh my gosh, this man looks massive, bro.
Yeah, it was weird because he switched into that fight, like when he came out. But it's funny because you're in a different mindset, and I didn't care. But when I went after and watched the fight, Cause like I was like shit, like he actually like turned it on, like
Yeah,
when he was walking out, it was. But you know, like it is what it is. When you set your mind that you're gonna fight somebody, you already took that decision, and there's no coming back.
Yeah.
Like always, the way I see it is always like every step that I take, even from before, but especially from when I get out of that changing room, is like every step that I get back behind me, there is void. There's nothing. Like there's no going back. There isn't. So by the time I'm in the cage, I'm way past that. It's like whatever. Like you can come up with a gun. I'm probably just gonna die in there, but there's no coming back. You know. So, but after that, watching it like with a cool mind, like seeing coming out like with like that big for sure. Like had an effect. But
no, you touched on a very interesting point. Because. Like I'm being around jiu-jitsu. I fought MMA back in the day. I have cornered guys for, many guys in MMA, like I cornered in UFC, all the events too. I cornered my teammate Sapo in a couple of his fights, like he used to, actually I even coach him, but he likes, hey Romeo, can you come in my fight? Just like to be around, I be with you guys and everybody is very different, like talking about you two, like a Benny, he's very relaxed, like he sleep and then, like he warm up differently. Marvin is very pumped always, always talking about what you're gonna do, like you wanna like training and then, like go hard, stuff like that. But you talk about the very interest, like the time that you make the decision. And then I think this is actually is for everything that we talk about in everyday Porrada, in life, bring the same mindset outside the cage to life. What does that mean? Like, for example, like we were just speaking here, like when we go in the room, right? The power of to make decision and make things happen, right? Like when you go like in a fight, like I see Benny, Benny since the beginning, I still remember Benny, like the first fight, like going back, like Benny, I'm like, Benny, you should fight MMA. Like Benny, he was training, like the way that I met Benny, he was training like with a great friend of mine, Bruno Paulista. And then we have like gathered a team to train in Babalu's gym back in the day. And then I go that training, and then, like the guys, I will go training and I want more. And then Benny's there, he's always in shape. And I'll roll with him. And then one day we begin to train MMA on Fridays. And then, like I go in the cage with Ben and then I'm like, I smashed this guy in jiu-jitsu. I'm going to smash this guy here, like in this cage. Man, I couldn't take him down and then he gave me like a bleed nose. I'm like, man, you have to fight. And then since, I don't know if you remember that day, you beat me up.
I don't know about that. But listen to this. The reason why I actually got into my first MMA fight was because Homolo was talking to Bruno. And, Bruno was my coach at the time. And I was working with him. And he's just whispering into Bruno's ears, hey, you got to get this guy a fight. Get this guy a fight. Because they kept bringing me in to train with you. I was training with Alberto. Whatever. I was training with these guys. And Bruno one day calls me. He's like, hey, you want to fight? I was too scared to say no because I want to sound like I'm a coward, and I didn't want to sound like a coward. So the only reason I said yes was like because I didn't want you guys to think I was a coward. So you say yes to the fight, and then come to find out it's not amateur because there's no amateur back then. Amateur didn't exist. So I go straight into my first professional fight, and it's like 4 weeks out. Homolo's helping me, Bruno's helping me. And I didn't really have any striking, but like I made it happen.
No, like it's crazy, like it's going back, and then talk about this, like to make the decision, right? Because back in the day, you make the decision upon like somebody's telling you what to do, and then you felt that, man, I have to do this, like I'm not a coward. I'm a true martial artist. I want to prove the point. But when you do that at first, that's what I want to get it, and then after that, I'm going to get a little bit off the story of your first fight. But like Marvin said, and then I truly believe that you're the same, like when you guys make the decision, you walk on the cage, there's no coming back. Yeah. But like now going back in time on your first fight, when you making the walk and then the fight begin, they think it's getting hard. Would we have the same mindset back then?
I don't even remember what happened. I got so nervous when we walked out. We walked out for into the cage, and we walked. We went in, we went out, and I don't even remember what happened.
I remember.
Like I know you remember because you were there and you were screaming so loud, and I just I remember going in there and like coming out so exhausted. I threw up after. I told you I'm never going to fight again. And I was so pissed at myself, but I didn't even remember what happened. And then, you know, it was one of those things is like I fought so nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. But at the same time, I remember saying I'm never going to fight again. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, I can't let it end like this. I can't let it end on such a shitty note. That's exactly what I was thinking back then. That was the worst experience of my life. It's not going to end like that. I'm going to do it better. And so that was the reason why I went back and kept fighting.
No, it's definitely, you know, like it goes so long. You know, I still remember we driving to the fight, you eating peanuts.
Oh
You
my
know what
gosh,
I mean?
yeah.
Like
I was
bag-
nervous.
a
I didn't
bag
know
of
what to
peanuts,
do.
You know, like you're just throwing like the salt you want.
Yeah.
You know, you just like
got weight a little bit or not really?
Not too much, like 5-6 pounds. At that time, I walked around so light, but there was a box of peanuts in the car, and I everybody else is eating, and I'm just nervous, man. I got this nervous energy, so I'm like, whatever, let me eat peanuts. And I didn't realize back then, but now I know it's the worst thing you can eat before a fight. You don't want to eat fats. Your body can't burn them. You want to eat carbs and protein, and I made sure to throw them all up right after the fight. It was great.
And I think that's the difference with a lot of people that like you know, he accepted the fight, but I'm sure like, and I've seen this all the time, like people, they say yes maybe on the moment, but throughout that time, a lot of people would have just found an excuse and then just didn't make it to the fight. And but that, you know, like shaped basically your life almost, you know, because by doing that, by sticking to that, then you build your confidence on like I mean, it was already in you for sure. Like you would have never like let anything get into you, because you're, you know, they always say ego is a bad thing, but actually it's not. And that's like when it comes out in this way, because you had to stand up to the expectation of your coaches, and that meant more than everything else, you know.
Back then,
because
yeah,
it meant
for
to
sure.
them, but it meant to you too. You said it to yourself, and you had to make it happen.
When I
And
found
then
out,
over time, you build that habit of like, okay, if I make a decision, it's not gonna change. And then you know, you'll see it in life, you'll see it in everything.
I met him in 2007, and you know, I started training in 2007, and I met him in 2007. We were training together, and like the more I found out about him and I saw him compete, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, Romulo became like a hero for me. So for him to tell my coach, hey, this guy needs to fight, and then for him to be like, I'll be there at your fight, I'll be cornering you, and I'll be there for your training. So for him to do all of that, like to say, no, I'm not gonna fight, I'm scared. Like it was not gonna happen, you know.
Exactly, and also like the example that you had and we have, because like it's an example, it's a crazy example for me too. Humble is always is a hero for me too. So you know, you're like, I cannot let this guy down. Like he put his belief in me. There's no way, you know, I won't do it, you know. So
Yeah,
that's crazy.
No, that's definitely, you know, it was a fun experience. But you know, like honestly, I have seen, you know, like a couple guys start the MMA career, and then man, honestly, the guys, you know, like they start on the toughest way. Like, you know, you won the fight. You know what I mean? It was really tough fight, you know, like it was a back and forth. The guy scrambled in a lot of position, you know. You know, like at some point he was defended, takedown pretty good, you know. But you won.
yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
got my ass kicked in the third round. I still have the video of it. This is the one fight I haven't released. The third round, I just took my ass whooping and somehow managed to squeak out a decision.
Bro, like thinking back, right?
Yeah.
Like MMA fights are
Yeah.
not easy. Like to
Yeah.
get like it's like now Romulo like walks into a jiu-jitsu competition, probably like, unless like the opponent might be like crazy level, like you'd be like walk in the park. Now for us it's different too, but the first, like you're very first professional with people watching you, so much shit can go wrong, and you see it every time. Like people who are actually good in the gym, they go out and they end up in position that they never end up in the gym and stuff, and they lose or they get knocked out. Like it's not easy, man. Like you like to manage your energy, especially like if you got pro right away. That kind of
Bro,
happened to me too. Like, but it's crazy. Like you gotta be like, looking back now, you should be like, shit, I still made it. You know?
It felt like I was a cross country runner trying to swim. I couldn't breathe in the fight. Like that's the best way I can explain it. I was a runner, but I'm in the water now and I can't swim. I don't know why I'm getting so tired. This is all the stuff I've already done before, but it's exhausting me for some reason, and I never get tired normally.
Now that was a great experience. You know, I took at least, you know, I was there. and then I took the fame for me, because you went back door, you went outside back door. I was walking around the stands, and people want to take a picture of me, think that I was the one fighting because of the curly hair,
So we had matching hair back then. We both had really curly hair.
That was funny, man. But I think, I'm going to ask Marvin this one also. Like you with 26 fights, 21 fights in UFC? You?
I have 21, I think, yeah.
21 and 26 fights total, right?
Yeah.
So now going back in time and then see how far you come, like a top contender, you know what I mean? Like 8 win streak in UFC, UFC obviously is a place that every fighter dream to fight. I dreamed to fight in UFC at some point in my career when I was actually thinking about fighting maybe back in the day. Every time that I walk there and I feel the energy, I'm like, oh man, I wish I had fought here, But, right now, when I see the difference, when you walk out, I have the chance to see you transform into a true fighter in the UFC. The way that I can nearly see what Marvin just said. You make the decision. I'm going in, and then that is not coming back, and then I'm leaving everything there. I still remember a couple fights, ago. You walk very calm on the cage, and then now you can see as soon as they begin to to walk out, and then that's the music, the beautiful music. I love this song. My daughters love this song that you walk out, and then you just Rolling Stones, you just scream, and then I can feel the energy that you're like, man, it's all in. I'm ready to kill or die here. And then, man, I believe that going back and then remember that first fight, first experience, and then see that you now a professional fighter, top contender, you're gonna be a champion. You know what I mean? How does it feel? Because a lot of people in life, they cannot experience that, because take a hard path in life is something that, when you make decisions, right? Marvin said, that make a decision, I'm gonna go fight, there's not coming back. I want to know, Benny, what did it take you to say, when it was the turning point? Because I remember you competing in jiu-jitsu, you work as a bounce, you're driving here to training, and then going back on the weekends to work and then one day you told me, hey, Romulo, Professor, I'm going to just focus in MMA. You know what I mean? And then since that day, that you just walk forward and then, see how far you come now is amazing. What's the process? What's it go through your mind? You have I'm going to ask you about setbacks as well, but how do you make so far? People are going to live a life for 100 years and they're never going to know how to do something like that.
So for me, originally when I started doing jiu-jitsu, I fell in love with it. Competing in jiu-jitsu was winning was like an idol. It became I was so obsessed with winning, and I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. But at some point, I believe God pulled me out of jiu-jitsu and brought me into MMA. I remember my mom calling me, and I was in Northridge at that time, and she says, "Hey, can come home? We got to have a talk." I come home, and she starts telling me hey, financially we're having problems. Never has she ever mentioned money to me before. I'm 22 at this point. I've never helped out in the house. If I needed money, I'd ask her. But she comes and she's very serious, and she's like, "Hey, I need help." And I freak out because I'm a spoiled kid. I'm great at competing, but I'm a spoiled kid. So even like you said, I was a bouncer, but I did it for me, so I could train, so I could compete, so I could do whatever I need to do, right? Travel. We used to travel all over the place. So all these things I did for myself. I go and she tells me this, and I freak out. But for some reason I tell her it's gonna be okay. I'll figure it out. Don't worry. I remember going into my room and thinking to myself, "There's no way I could do anything unless I get a 9 to 5 job. I have to say goodbye to jiu-jitsu," because back then there was no money in jiu-jitsu. In 2012, you're not gonna make that money doing jiu-jitsu, And I was just getting my black belt, and so this is like one of maybe the first time I've actually ever prayed. So I was not a religious man at this point, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do, and I start praying. I genuinely just start praying. I'm like, listen, if you're real, if you're up there, give me something, help me here. And I started thinking about MMA, but this is the crazy part. As I'm thinking about MMA, I get a call from Rafael Cordero. And I had trained before with him before. I had fought before, but I always did it just for fun because, you made me fight before and whatever. I did MMA for fun at this point. Jiu-jitsu was my goal. I wanted to be a black belt world champion. I wanted to make sure I get four medals, 4 gold medals so I could be in the Hall of Fame or whatever it is. I wanted to do all of that stuff. But he calls me and he says, hey, there's an opportunity to fight in Brazil, and they're going to pay you like $5,000 if you win. $5,000. I paid for my first fight. I paid for medicals. I paid for everything. And he's like, when he said $5,000, I couldn't believe it. And I just shocked. I said, all right, let's go. And 4 weeks later, I'm in Brazil. I have my fight. I win the fight by TKO. I threw a knee. I split the guy's head open, and they stopped the fight. Come home. Give the money to my mom and like, we're good, right? She's like, yeah, we're good for like this month and maybe next month. I'm such a kid. I don't understand, bro. I don't understand at this point. I don't understand because I would make like a couple $100 bouncing. Yeah, exactly. I made a couple of $100 bouncing, but she paid all the real bills, so I didn't understand how things work. We have debt, we have these things, we have loans and taxes, and she starts talking, and I just freak out again. My heart sinks. I go back into my room. I do the same thing. I start praying. And then another
fight comes.
No, it's real. Actually, another fight does come, but not just that. I get people start calling me to teach them, in one-on-one. Because I was teaching classes, okay, but it wasn't the same. People start teaching, asking for one-on-one training, and all of a sudden I went from teaching like once a week to teaching 5 days a week. And it's all one-on-ones. And I'm just like, I can't believe this. I'm fighting every couple of months. I'm teaching every day. And I'm basically an adult now. I'm providing for my family. And it was like overnight. And as I'm doing this, a year and a half later, the UFC calls. Because I get like 4 fights in. And then the UFC calls me for a short notice fight. And that's how I get into the UFC.
Like a crazy thing about, like this story, like the UFC. I don't know if you remember, when you told me that you want to fight, I told you, I don't know, if you actually do remember that. I said, you need a manager. How are you going to fight without a manager? And then I'm like, and then you're like, a manager? I'm like, yes. And then, Ali, I have making connection with Ali, with couple guys, when Ali manager Verdun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then I said, I need a favor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
And then, man, I still got the email of, he sent me like email, ask about you, and then he asked me like this, hey, Romulo, he's not going to get hurt, huh? I swear he asked me that.
It's true, because the UFC said the same thing. They wouldn't let me in.
He told me to send an email to the matchmaker back in the day.
Joe Silva.
Joe Silva. I'm like, Ali, Joe Silva doesn't even know who I am. How I'm going to... No, just send him an email and then tell him that he's not going to get hurt. I send an email like this. Benny is going to smash whoever is in the front of him. Yeah. And then, I remember, man, when Benny smashed the guy, I call Ali right away. I told you, get him a contract. And then it was 170. Yeah. It was the weight class above you. And then it's crazy, because, everything is beginning to, fall into place, and then I will go back in something that you said eventually. But I'm going to, transfer to Marvin because I want to know, because I don't know much about Marvin in the beginning, but I want to talk about faith with you in the next, make sure that I don't forget, because as we go into the things, it's something that I love to talk with you about it. And then just like you said, you pray, you know what I mean? You pray and then you got a phone call, you know what I mean? You pray and then UFC call you in a short notice fight, But let's go there after I'm speak with Marvin, because I'm interested to know too, Marvin, how that, I know you a freaking athlete, you know what I mean? Like you just like, man, honestly, you famous in Brazil too. You people know you, but the first thing that people ask me, man, how tough is that guy? I'm like, man, he's just a animal, He's like a made by Iron Man. I don't know, like he doesn't get tired, he gets hit and then he keep moving forward, he doesn't get rocked, I just want to know, Marvin, because how's your story? How you end up fighting and then fighting UFC, be like I don't know if you have a, that you ever thought about this, but you are an Italian hero, an athlete in a whole country. I was in I was in your last fight in France. Man, that is a one whole section with Italians in both sides, one side and another side. And then you are Italian hero. People follow you that you represent a country. But how do you start? How do you start? And then same question. How do you end up being one of the best? Like you also, that is your dream. First Italian UFC world champion ever. That you're gonna make it happen. I truly believe on that too. So how did you start it?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Because thinking back, like when I started, I was like super like naive in a sense. But thinking back, is a bit crazy what happened, because I come from a place, North Italy, small town, 5,000 people town, Mezzo Corona. I always represent it when I go out, but this sport did not exist. People don't even know what fighting is. Pretty much, like you'll fight here and there in the street, but like it happens, like that's when I saw a fight. But the sport doesn't really exist. My family is not really they're not really like sport people and stuff like this. So yeah, I mean, I was just growing up, I was always getting into scuffles and stuff. I was a bit of a crazy kid, and I always wanted some more. And then I just made it happen. To be honest, actually, even looking back, I did the right decision in many occasions, and I made it happen, because I remember basically starting out going to like an MMA gym, which was crazy. Like they didn't even know, like the MMA gym was like pretty much like kickboxing with just a little bit of like showing like arbor and triangle, like basic stuff. Wrestling, we didn't know anything. And then after a little bit, like I started competing like around Italy, like doing like all kind of competition. And then after a couple of years, with a guy that I met in one of the competition, I'm like, let's go to London to see how it is, and to see like in a real MMA gym. Go out there, just realize it's a whole different level. We get smashed, and I remember laying down on the mat, and I'm like, that's where I want to be. Like,
how old were you?
I was like just turned 19.
Wow.
And so basically, actually, when I first went, I was 18. Then I turned 19, finished basically high school, and went back to London. I went back to London, and at that moment, I'm like, and that I always say like that made my bones, because that was probably the toughest time of my life, because like I went there, nobody even knew who I was, and I basically just show up to the classes, But then the coaches started realizing I'm there twice a day, every day, and in the meanwhile, I'm working as a bouncer too. And this is like, I'm barely speaking English. Like, I'm 19. I just took myself from like a small town to London. And I'm barely sleeping. I'm sleeping like 5 hours a day. I'm working and I'm training, but I'm there like twice a day pretty much. Like 3-4 times a week, I'm there twice a day. And the other time, I'm there at least once a day. And I start getting better. And after almost like 4 or 5 months, they start bringing me to the pro classes. So I remember like these 3-4 months, they were like full of doubts, because I'm like, shit, like people don't even know who I am, and I'm just like put it in. And by that time, I had a few losses actually in Italy with somebody else. So I had this anger in me, because I'm like, shit, like, I know I'm a winner. I know I'm trained like a winner. I know I'm putting everything into this, but I didn't like the come out of those fights weren't right. And so all that time that, like they weren't really giving me attention to, I'm like, maybe it's not for me, but I stuck to it. I kept going, and then eventually they brought me to like the pro classes, and yeah, man, I just kept training, and then got into my first fight, and then it started out, and then you always raise your standards, and you see you're actually good at it, and then I really believe, like, if you want to make something great in life, you have to like give yourself completely, commit everything to like something bigger than you. That's how you make something special happen, I think. And then I'm like, man, I really want to represent Italy. I really want to be the first UFC champion from Italy. And I mean, and my last 15 years of my life, I've been fighting, and that's how I grew as a man too. That basically everything I learned is from this. Like. In like looking back, of course, a lot of sacrifices, but even all the experience that I've made through fighting, they're they're like they don't have a price. That you cannot value them. This like it's more, and it's more than everything else. And so yeah, that's how it started. Though I just pretty much I made it happen somehow. I just wanted it, and what got me a lot, I remember that video, man. Like I remember that video. First were like the Fedor Emelianenko videos, and one video that stuck into me is like Shogun coming back with 2 belts, the Pride belt and the UFC belt. Everybody like cheering him, everybody like welcoming him back, and I'm like, shit, man, like the high that Shogun had on that moment, man. I want to feel that way, you know? And so...
How old were you when you came to California? I used to give this guy rides. So he comes to California, and he's like barely speaks English. His English is okay. No, actually, it was your...
It was all right. I was speaking like
your roommate.
London English.
Yeah, your roommate was even worse. He had 0 English. I don't remember which roommate you had at the time, but like he'd be like, hey, can you come pick us up? I'm like, for what? For training. I was like, wait, you guys don't have a car? You realize it's California, right? Like you can't go anywhere without a car. So I'm in this... old Corolla, it's the same Corolla, smelly Corolla, and I would go get these guys, and then we would go train, and then we would go eat, and then I would drop them off, and then he'd be like, okay, so you're gonna pick me up again tomorrow? I was like, bro, but that was our routine.
The first, I remember, I swear, like even thinking back now, the hours that I've lost first in London waiting for buses, and after even here, because here like the public services are very bad, like waiting with like, because I would just like go with a bike, get the bike on the bus, get the bus right to where I had to go, and then get my bike out and go to the gym or whatever I had to go. And or sometimes I was staying in Huntington, go straight to Kings, but I was also maybe like, I was going to Furao, so a mess. And I remember a few times like this happened, more than a few times, where like I'm waiting for the bus might have taken already like an hour to come, and he's already loaded with bike, so I have to wait for the next one.
Oh,
like
man.
fuck, man!
I didn't even think about that.
That's
this happened like 4 or 5 times, and the bus might take another 2-3 hours, and I'm just thinking, fuck, like it's dark at night. Or when I was going out to Jacob also at Church Boys, like with the bike, man, like it was, well, the way it started out here was also crazy. I stayed a few days in a McDonald's just getting the Wi-Fi. And the guy who got me up was Jason Manley, which is crazy because now he's been in my corner the last fight, and we go back together, basically training.
Very nice.
But it's crazy. Yeah, super nice guy. It's crazy because so they give me this fight, and I'm like, shit, it was Jack Mason. And in my head, I had this thing. I'm like, I need to step it up in training. All right, let's try to do a camp in America. So by the time I won this tournament, Venator, I had like 10K in my bank. I'm like, I'm going to just try to make 3 months in Cali, training at Kings. Because I met Babalu one time when I came here for a competition with Luis Tosta, which was the first time here in California. Well, met Babalu, and I thought that he was kind of like, he was going to help me out with a place. But when I got here, I just realized it's a whole different story because... Actually, no, that's crazy because the first 2 weeks we were supposed to stay at a friend of mine, auntie's place. 2 days after we got kicked out because his husband didn't know, and he's like, "Who are these 2 guys? get him out." Because one was basically his nephew, but me, he didn't know me, and she didn't tell her. So, like, no, they can't stay at my house. All right, so we're on the street. So let's call Babalu. I'm like, hey, bro, can you help me out? What's your budget? And I said, $600-$700 maybe for a month. Never heard from him. So now I'm like, shit, what the fuck can I do? Like, man, like I have a fight coming up, and like, I need to train. All right, like, so the only place where we would get the Wi-Fi was the McDonald's. So I'm out there at the McDonald's, like thinking. And luckily we met like, the fight before we met Jason, and we met Jason because he brought his girlfriend to fight Venator in Italy one time, and I met him, but I was cutting weight. I didn't make too much out of it because I'm like, this guy was telling me that he was training with like big names, but for me it was so far. I wasn't really like paying attention too much, but also I wasn't really believing almost in it because it was very far from me, all these big names. But yeah, last chance. What can I, what do I have to lose? Also, ask him like if he can give me a place to stay. or like help me out somehow. And 2 hours after, he comes and picks me up, and I stay with him for the whole camp basically.
That's a great.
So
What a guy.
crazy,
Jason O'Malley, man,
Saved the
amazing
day.
guy.
Yeah.
You know, that's that's what I want to hear, man, because that's what when I talk about everyday porrada and people don't realize, people think that everyday porrada it's basically, oh man, I have to go as hard as I can. No, man, it's actually knowing how to face adversity and overcome. You have a dream, you have to go after. You know what I mean? You're gonna face adversity through the way many times. You're gonna face adversity when you on your lowest. You're gonna face adversity when you're on your highest. Yeah, that's for sure. True. And then it doesn't matter where you're at. Adversity is always hard. You know what I mean? You can be like a very low and then just being used to face adversity. And then you just keep going, automatic. You're just in autopilot. And then you can be on your highest, like knowing that like there is no way that I'm gonna face adversity now. And then you face adversity. But guess what? Since you already learned how to deal with the adversity, you just get through. And that's an amazing story, because now you're a superstar. You know what I mean? Like it is, and then it's great. I like to, I'm a person that I like to see like the personalities, and then Marvin, Benny, they're so different, As you can see the dressing, look at Marvin, like with rocking the Rolex, with the purple shirt, with the purple matchup shirt, you know what I mean? It's a brand, right?
Yeah.
Which Marvin has an amazing brand, he's been doing great. And
do you still go to McDonald's? That's the question I want.
Yeah, you go McDonald's for like, you go McDonald's for the Wi-Fi.
No, I swear, that was the last time I've been to McDonald's.
But
10 years ago.
Whoa.
That is definitely, man, that's amazing
What a
to
story,
hear,
man.
like a great story, because I think, like as Benny said, he faced a different adversity, he said, you were like, okay, I'm not like the richest, but, I'm in America, my mom, like Benny,
I was comfortable.
You're comfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You haven't yet experienced like, oh, I need to do something right now, right? And then Marvin, has to move to London. He has to make things happen. It's different, like for example, I think I'm more similar with Marvin the way that I grew up. I moved to, like I just have like one day I'm in my house and then this guy come to me and then he tell me, man, I think you should move and then fight, and I'm like, man, yeah, I don't like school. I should do that. And then, yeah, I'm going to do that. Man, I make the decision. And then that was never, one time, when I left my house, my dad said, it's okay, let him go. 2 weeks, he'll come back. And then,
my mom said the same, man.
Oh.
That stuck with me. I cannot be back.
No,
I gotta make it happen.
But I actually in 2 weeks I'm like, man, I miss my home, but I can't.
Yeah.
I just for me think about my dad saying that, and I knew it. My dad said that for me to not go back because he wants me to stay. He wants me to grow as a man, right? But the same thing,
you think your dad said it actually to motivate you?
Yeah, he did to motivate because tell me something that I can do it, then you see what happened. You know what I mean? As soon as somebody tell me like you can't do this, like for example, I'm married. You know what I mean? I have my wife. She cannot tell me like, oh, you can't go to Brazil. You can't do this. You know what I mean? Because she tell me that, then I go.
Yeah.
She'll trigger you.
She trigger me. She need to be like, but she's smart. She trigger me with things that it's positive.
Yeah,
She doesn't.
She knows how to do
things,
get the job done. Yeah,
exactly. But my dad, I just don't accept that. Can't, But like,
I dare you not to buy me that car.
Yeah. my wife's the same. Last night, she called me lazy, and I almost lost my mind, man. We started fighting because, and like,
she's mean.
Yeah, she called me lazy, and I'm like, I did this, and I start naming things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to step back and calm down. But she knows how to like push the buttons, right? Because she called me that. I do all the extra stuff. I make sure you clean the house, you do all the little things, you take care of the kids, you water the plants, you have all these extra chores that like when no one's watching, you still get it done. But it's weird how your wife can push you in the right direction.
Oh, sure.
Benny, it's sometimes it's hard to go back in something that we passed through, but like I know Victoria, Benny's wife, and then I'm a believer that, when you find, someone, I always give a lot of props for my wife, because she bring the best of me all the time. You know, like I have no doubt with that. You know, like she doesn't let me to be comfortable. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I want to be comfortable. And then she's like, no, you need to do a podcast. You want to be comfortable? No, you need to be a motivational speaker. You know what I mean? I'm like, what do you mean? You know, like she's constantly pushing me to my best, you know? And then I sit there with you, with Victoria, you know, because Victoria is everywhere with you. You know what I mean? She's everywhere. She's taking care of the daughters. She's taking care of you. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm a true believer, you know, like I want to talk about her because I believe that a lot of your success, it's related to Victoria be with you and then push you to your best too. I think Victoria and Janaina, they actually very similar, you know, the way that
business minded. They're hard workers, you know, not like the stuff that the paperwork she could do, the amount of paperwork she could do.
Oh my God.
I would literally, if I have to do all that, I would burn the house down.
Me too.
I'd be like, I'm good. I don't need this house. I'll go live in my car. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do any of this. Right. So I agree with you 100%. There's a reason why in English they call them the better half.
Yeah, definitely, you know, like, and then, yeah, man. And then, Benny, you know, you just have a newborn. Congratulations.
Right.
You know, 2 girls now. Woo.
2 girls, that's right.
Just like me. Yeah.
Girl dad, man, I'm good with it. One day I'm going to have a son, and my son's going to be pissed at me because I always say, I don't really want boys. I'm surrounded by boys. I have so many sons. Today I was joking. Marvin is one of my sons. But I have so many sons because I have so many guys I train with, and they're younger than me, and they're like, hey, what should I do with this? Well, I'm basically surrounded by young men who ask me for direction all the time. So it's nice to have girls.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to have soft women who just want to be held, or they want to play and they don't want to be rough all the time. So I'm good with girls, man.
Let me ask you. So, you know, like many people, they still ask me, hey, Romulo, you need a boy, you know, like you need this, you know, like, I think because obviously, you know, like, I'm a fighter, you know, like, and then they kind of like picture having a boy to follow the footsteps, you know, keep the legacy alive. You know, like I never thought about that, to be honest. You know, I love girls, and then for me, I'm not really good at boys. Yeah. You know, I don't you know, like I don't, like, for example, with my sisters, I have 3 sisters and I have 1 brother. With my brother, I always had problems. You know, I never had problems with my sisters. You know what I mean? Like I'm always very good with them, very close. And then for me, I'm very happy with the girl. Now, Benny, do you want to have a boy? Or are you okay if you have a 3rd girl?
I'm more of, like I said, man. I genuinely mean it when I say I prefer women, and my thing is too, like if I have a boy, maybe he wants to fight, or maybe he doesn't want to fight, but everybody's in his ears like, oh, your dad fought, you know, do you want to be like your dad? Do you want to fight? And to be honest with you, the thing that makes my fighting work is this broken mindset that I have. It's this mindset that, like, it's not normal what I have. I understand that. I wouldn't want that for my son, you know?
What do you mean? Like explain this a little.
When I walk into a room, I want to know I can hurt everybody. I have the ability. I have the strength to overcome everybody in this room. If necessary, I can do that. Like, that's something that when I walk into a room, I have this problem. If I'm, you know, I have to always pull myself back. Like, I can't compete every day because I get injured or whatever. But, like, every opportunity I get, I have to, like, I want to prove to everybody that I'm the best. And so I don't know if I want that for everybody. Like, I don't know if I want that for my son, because it's as great as it's been for me. It's also led to a lot of pain, you know. So it's one of those things where if I have a son, if he has the same kind of mindset that I do, that I like to call it brokenness, okay, fine, you can go fight. But if you don't, it's not for you. Fighting's not for you.
Man, you have that too, Marvin?
Well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That competitiveness, yeah. But that's the main thing about, like, I think that's the thing. Like, when people ask me why do you fight, because I'm like, that's the ultimate competition. Like, if there was one piece of food over there and we would both starve to death, we would have to fight for that piece of food. And I know now society, it is not the same, but if it had to come down to that, it's like that. So, like, I don't think it's that weird, you know. But like when you're so competitive, I think that's. I know you're the same. Like you
for
like
sure.
you know like this is what brings people to fight. I think and not just brings people to fight. The one who stays and they actually are become very good is because they're this competitive.
Yeah.
And when they're like. They make it look like they don't care. It's just they're masking it. Like we're all like we know like a good fighter is not an emotional fighter, but we do have that kick of like emotion that like I want to overcome who's in front of me, you know. And like I said, I think I don't have no sons, I don't have no daughters, but I believe in general. Even if I had like a good friend that would ask me, like I would always be like, I cannot tell you, like, and. If you really want to fight, I wouldn't even be able to stop you.
Yeah.
It's like something I couldn't be able to stop you, and I couldn't be able to even push you to do it. It's just you would just like, I would just see you one day, just going every day to the gym, and now I know.
Man, that's amazing. You know what Ben said? You know, like he's saying, and then me and Marvin were just like, yeah. I look at Marvin and we're like, you know, like
Fighting.
it's true. You know, like that's what we like it. You know, like.
But that's why I remember even as a kid, I swear, like, so I was the opposite of being bullied. Like, people like they would like it was a different way of bullying. Like, I would turn around and all my friends are disappeared. Like, I don't have no friends, or like I would see them. Gathering or like coming together, and they wouldn't have called me. I'm like, motherfuckers, you guys going out, and you guys didn't call me because I was so competitive, like about everything.
Man,
you know?
it's so true. Like you know, like Ben said that. It just, I mean, another day, you know, like I'm recovering still, you know, like, and then another day I'm in the gym in Tarzana. In Tarzana, you know, it's a new gym, you know. Sometimes it's special night, you know. There's not a lot of tough guys, you know. And then this guy walk in the gym, you know, like tall guy, like you know, like jacked, you know, and then with the black belt, with the, you know, like in Gracie Bar, you have to wear Gracie Bar gi, you know. And then this guy has like no rash guard, and then, you know, like his black belt with the black gi or some gi that I don't know, you know. I'm like, then everybody's scared to go tell the guy that he needs to wear the gi, you know. And then now I'm like, man, you know, like this guy, man, if this guy is good, what I'm gonna do? So I'm gonna tell him, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you, you know. You know, like, oh, here we have, you know, like, you need to wear, oh, I trained in Gracie Barra gym before, you know, like, do you have the guy was really nice, you know, really polite, you know, like, and then I'm like, yeah, man, I'm gonna get your gi. So I got him a gi, you know, like, he had to buy, I felt bad, he had to buy a rash guard because he didn't have a rash guard, you know. But anyways, then he go train, you know, like, and then, man, he just is smoking everybody. And then my back is still hurting, and then I'm sitting there, and then I'm thinking myself, man, I think I'm gonna have to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, like this is
think,
every day.
I think I'm gonna have to do the way that I am right now.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think I can smash this guy, you know, but like, but if I get hurt, man, what did I do? And then you know, like, I'm sitting there the whole time thinking what Benny just said it, and I'm like, man, I can smash this guy. I can smash everybody here. But, you know, like, it was not a good feeling. It's something that for many people is like, man, you know, like, you should, you know, like, relax. And then I just finished the training. I tell him, hey, man, how are you? You're going to come back training? And he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about signing up here. Man, I have another gym that's very close here, and then we're going to have an amazing no-gi train. Now, can you go there and train? And then, you know, like, I'm already texting Victor, you know, like, hey, Victor, this guy's gonna come, man. You guys better smash him because he smashed everybody, you know? So then the guy end up, you know, like, come back to the gym and training. But, man, it's this competitiveness, you know, like, it's crazy because, you know, like, when you have the gym and then you, obviously, I'm gonna get older. And then, you know, like, for example, this time I was hurt and then I couldn't do anything, you know? Even though that I don't need to do anything. Yeah. But it's just like Benny said. It's just broke mine that we have, and then we were talking about this, like, not what, like right there, like my daughters, right? Like, my daughters go to school, my older daughter, and then she write like, they ask them to pick a word, and she pick a word accomplish, and then she write about working hard every day, you know, like set my goals and accomplish, and then my wife's like, where this come from? And then now my young daughter, you know, like she, you know, she goes in competition. What's competition for you? It's about winning, you know. It's like, do I need to have a boy to transfer the same mindset? I don't believe, I believe the girls have the same power to do so. It's just like the way that you teach them. And then special nowadays, we live in a soft world. And then, like the Everyday Porrada podcast is to actually share like a toughness, relentless hard work to accomplish the goals. And then you guys prove that in a sport that is nearly impossible to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that in a war where like this kind of like victim mentality where you're entitled to have everything because somebody has to give it to you, in a war like this, it's very important to have like even with daughters and girls or whatever, like it's a very important to like give them that asset of a mentality to like go get it. Like and if I don't succeed, it's my fault. And it's crazy because I had to find out in the real world about this, that if you don't get it, no matter what happens, no matter the excuses that you have, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck. So like,
It's true. This is true.
Nobody. And you could
Nobody
have the
cares.
best excuses.
Yeah,
You could be having, but at the end of the day, like right or wrong, the result speaks, and nothing else, unfortunately.
So
Even right here, right now, we talk about some things because we went through a lot of adversity, and we made it to a point where we can talk about these things. If we were still there where we were like 10 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about this thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So like to give that go get mentality, like I need to get it and nobody else can do it for me. It's the biggest asset that you can give to to a friend or to a daughter or to a son.
the victim mentality is real. Now, for me, on the other hand, my fear is like, my first answer is always fight it out. My first answer, the easiest answer is to fight it out. That's why I like having girls. I can pull back, I can pull back, and it helps me be soft, but at the same time, when it's necessary, I can go back to being who I am. Because I walk into my house or I go into places with if my daughters are there, I don't need to be this I don't have to be on all the time. And it's not, people talk about on, off. I never really understood what that meant. Like, how do you, what does off mean? It's on all the time, But having kids, having my daughters really helped me actually kind of focus it better. Okay, right now is the time to be soft. Right now is the time to calm down.
I wouldn't call it soft, bro. You're never soft. You're just like
Just
put
lovely,
it aside,
lovely.
like
Yeah.
motion just a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think
Whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it.
But not because it's like.
But I don't need to fighting doesn't have to be the first thing I think about, the first thought is fighting. The easiest thought is fighting.
Even in war they rest us at some point.
Yeah, but fighting was always easy and enjoyable. That's the problem for me. It's like the most enjoyable thing I could do is get in a fight. Oh, hey, it's Friday night. What do you want to do? let's go train and maybe even find a fight. That was more enjoyable for me growing up, and so. It's good it's basically growing as an adult because fighting is not the first answer, I have to put something else in front of it. I have to learn how to, you want to talk about hard. Like I say, fighting's easy. Try being a servant. Serving is hard. You take care of two girls, you take care of your wife, that's service, and that is a new level of difficult. And we were talking about it too.
Fighting you could be easy, but preparing for a fight, it ain't easy. That's what I'm saying. So it's like everybody can fight on a Friday night. Everybody can fight, actually not everybody, but most of the people who fight on a Friday night over something that they care or that they want. But to stick to it constantly for years over years and preparing fights and going through it every time. That's why it's one of those sports that when you call it because it's first of all you can get hurt, and second of all going through a camp it's not easy. You cannot do it unless you're in your best shape. So
I don't think
it's not just the fight itself, because imagine what is more of a problem when we even get a fight is the build up, is the fight week, is the pressure that we get on. It's not really the fight itself. When it starts, I would call that easy too.
Yeah. Well, I mean even training, because it simulates fighting. I like training. Training's
No, yeah,
fun.
it's
I don't.
nice.
I don't think I'm ever gonna get to a point where I'm like, oh man, practice is too much for me. I don't want to do this anymore. I think I'm gonna end up retiring not because of that, but because finally I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna have to kill this part of me, the brokenness I keep talking about. I'm gonna have to kill it one day because, bro, like, training is never not gonna be fun for me. It's always gonna be my favorite thing to do. Like
That day somebody will show up at your house and try to get in, and then you'll have to like get it back out.
you know,
You'll never kill it.
I don't think that's gonna be the reason why I retire. I think I'll retire because finally I'm gonna say, listen, I can't keep being this guy, because if I keep being this guy, I'm gonna destroy the rest of my life. So I have to move on.
And then that's a good thing, you know. Like I'm a little bit ahead of you guys. Like obviously I never fought professionally in mixed martial arts, which is, I think it's even way more deep than what I did, you know. Like, and then one thing that, if we say that this in Portuguese, you know, if I can give an advice, if advice was good, I would sell, but I would give you guys anyways, right? It's very important to you guys to thinking about next, right? Because once we live as a fighter on a daily basis, as going to a competition, like Ben said, some people, they identify with that. Some people thinking like, I like what Ben said, this part that is a broke mindset that you have, that you need to fight, you know. For me, you know, like, I have an identity, you know, like I'm like, this is who I am. This is what I do, right? It's so long. It's been my whole life. I don't remember what I did before this. If you ask me like, what you did before you like constantly training on your daily basis, I really have to go deep. Like, what did I did? Who is my friends?
I don't remember.
What did I like to do?
Yeah, I don't
It's
remember
crazy,
for
right?
sure.
Because
Crazy.
my life and then your life is just shaping into that. My life shaping into training. Go to jiu-jitsu, train. You know what I mean? Go back home, go for a run, go work out, go train, go on a competition on the weekend, rest, do it again, get hurt, get better. You know, like, then
It's crazy. You're right.
at some point, like Benny said, you have to just like kill this part of you, right? Like it's like talking about the process, right? Like I believe that whatever that I have been through in the past few months, it's showing me that, okay, so a new you has to be born, you know, like what's next, you know. But at the same time, I cannot lose who I am. How can we do that?
Yeah.
So I think you guys are like Benny, you on your pride. Marvin, you're not even close to your pride. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're gonna be. I think Benny's on the pride right now. You know what I mean? Like I think pride, like beginning of the pride to hit the highest of the pride. I think Marvin, you have so much to still grow. That's crazy. That's even scary.
So young.
You know what I mean? For you to thinking about it, you know, like really, that's actually, you think so? Yeah. You know, like, and then, but the time frame is short. An athlete life is a short life, you know, and then that's after. And I think what I like to do, like, for example, I like to be around you guys. You know, I like to be around guys that is doing what I love to do, but on the fullest. I don't like to be around people they do halfway.
Wannabes.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, let's go training. You know what I mean? I love to teach jiu-jitsu. I love to be around my students. They always bring the best. But like, as soon as somebody tell me like this, hey, I want to be a competitor, man, I build a high expectation on you.
Yeah.
And then if you don't bring the best of you all the time, I don't respect you. And then now our friendship are affected. Yeah. Because, like Benny tell me, like, I want to be a UFC champion. And then let's assume that Benny comes to the training and then Benny is not pushing. He's been like finding excuses for this and for that. And then now I'm looking at Benny. I begin to not like Benny.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, I'm like, I don't like Benny anymore.
Because you feel like
you know what I mean?
No, but I relate to that too.
the actions are lying. You're lying with your actions. You say one thing, but then your actions say another thing. So it's almost like, hey, you're lying to me.
Yeah, but
You're-
not everyone is
yeah,
like us.
yeah.
But yeah,
But I
it's
get it.
crazy.
And then,
That's,
like, and then like when like we used to like go on this 9 a.m. training, like I go that training because you guys go on the training, and then everybody knows that. I could care less about everybody that's around. You know what I mean? The people that are around for me was just body for training, and then I don't care if they're gonna be watching. They know that. You know what I mean? Like, because if I'm gonna put my time on this point of my life, I'm gonna put my time that someone that actually gonna make me grow too. You guys might think, oh, thank you, professor, you come here help me. Man, no, thank you guys, because like if I don't do that, then I stop to grow. I'm like comfortable, So I, like you guys feel like that is a few, man, I'm telling you, that is a few guys that I like to be around, special on this scenario. You know what I mean? Because like Ben is saying, like softness, like for me, like when someone, like I said, don't tell me. Like Janaína sometimes she's like, are you crazy? Like, yes, I'm crazy. I know that I'm crazy. Just don't tell me that you're going to do it. You know what I mean? Because if you tell me that I'm going to be UFC champion, and then I look at you and then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing UFC champion, man, like I'm just like, I'm like, man, you're wasting your time and my time, and then being around you guys, like I'm being in Benny's fight, like I'm being in Marvin's fight. I like way more like a behind the scene, like Marvin, I coach Marvin, I corner Marvin a couple times. I corner Benny when he doesn't have everybody that to corner him. But I like more the behind the scene, like the training, the pre, like the weight cutting, the diet, like if you injury, if you like have a setback, and then see how you react, That's the energy that I like to absorb, I, like there is one fight of like, I don't know if it's Benny or Marvin, like that they finished the fight when you guys got in the hotel. I was away in LA. Yeah. Because
where's Hamula, like
like because the fun part is already done.
Yeah.
Like because the fun part for me is be around toughness. You know what I mean? Like be around like someone like they have a 20 vision. I want to accomplish this, and then I'm ready to. And then it's not only about winning. It's about okay, job is done. Next. You know what I mean? Because it's always next. And then like it's always next. Excuse. It's just a massage on the ego. Yeah. Excuse is something that I hate the most, I think you both have the coin, right? You have the coin. They have the coin. They have like, like it's actually the born of everyday Porrada, right? That's how, like I knew something's coming, is the coin. Just like I think now it's 12 people that have the coin. All day, every day, no excuse. Because I believe like when someone give me an excuse about something that they actually the ones choose to do it, like they are already cheating themselves. They massaging the ego. You know what I mean? Like
they're looking for a way out.
They're looking for a way out, and then they use this way out is always an excuse and quit. It's like in a fight. You can be on a fight, and then the fight is getting like deep water. You can just find a way to get knocked out. You can find a way to like a tap.
That's the way of
you know what I mean? Like you can find a way to just like like they have to stop the fight. You know what I mean? Like but like when you're in deep waters, and then you keep fighting, like and then you give everything you have, you never regret. Yeah. Like that's the mindset of champion. That's the people that I like to be around. Guys, before I forget, call the action, right? I forgot about that. Sorry, guys. We've been such a good talk here. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to YouTube channel. And then this episode here has been amazing. That's it. Let me go back to the talk here because it's good. Guys, Benny, actually you now, going back, fate, Okay. I'm very, like we have this private conversation before, and then I'm not afraid to be exposed there because I think people like reality. They like people that are real. And then we talk about this privilege at some point here when you're coming in. And then I ask you, man, how can you have so much faith? How can you, like you said, you go in the room and then you pray, and then, like a God give you answer. Yeah. You know what I mean? I just, like sometimes when I talk this with people, I don't know, like if they want to express or if they want to keep for them, but I believe you someone that you want to throw to the world. And then this is not only intrigue me, but it motivates me to find my faith. You know what I mean? So how, like you told me about you told me about something that happened, and then like I believe the fight or in life, when we overcome something, like things change, completed. You told me that at some point your chin was weak, you were injured, you know what I mean? You like in a dark place as far as fight, you know what I mean? And then that is a twin point. Talk to me about that. I think this is gonna be amazing to people hear from you.
I remember, I was a man of faith already, but I remember I was like 6-1 in the UFC or 5-1 in the UFC at this point. And I remember Rafael dos Anjos, my teammate, he became champion. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy had like 15 or 20 fights before he became champion. I'm like, nah, I'm going to get there way before that. I remember just being so prideful and confident. And then I started hitting these walls. I started getting injured and I started losing and I couldn't win a fight. It took me 2 years and I didn't win a fight. I lost. I had a draw and then I lost again and both losses were brutal. And all of a sudden, I can't take a punch in training. Something's going on with my neck. Something's going on with my shoulder. I'm having these serious problems, and I'm like, "What the hell?" Like I'm genuinely struggling, and I'm spending all this time, and I'm praying like, "What the heck's going on?" Like I thought this is where I was supposed to be, and now I'm contemplating retirement. And at that time, I didn't know it, but looking back at it now, I realized when God wants a man, he has to break him first, because the man that I was back then, so prideful. I thought I could do everything on my own, but I realized that's not what God wanted. He had to starve the flesh off of me. So he took me to the desert and he left me there and hungry, but he gave me just enough light so I can survive and survive and survive. And if I was faithful, I would come out of it. And that's where I am now. I came out of it, and now I'm going for bigger fights, and Lord willing, the belt one day. But I know the darkest part of my life was also, looking back, one of the most beneficial things that ever happened to me, because as a man, I grew. As a man, I understood like genuine trials where I didn't know if I could fight again. And at this time, my wife is not my wife. She's my fiance. And I was looking at her and I was like, how am I going to provide for her? Her parents already don't want me to marry her. They say, you can't marry her. Your job is not a real job, is basically what they say. Asian parents, they take this thing really seriously. They say, hey, this isn't a real job. I had a gym at the time. They're like, hey, this is 1 year business. It could go out any minute. You can't. This is
I don't like that.
Yeah, like
nothing to do.
Yeah, like they basically said I can't.
Ain't about that. Though.
Yeah, but they literally said I
But
can't
anyway.
marry their daughter, and so now I'm injured. I can't. I'm looking at my the woman that I want to marry, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna provide for her. And she's so supportive. She wants to do everything, and so I finally realized like I didn't have the ability to do it. And I realized it wasn't me who was going to do it. If this was going to happen, it had to be God. It had to be him. And so when I genuinely recognized that I think that's when the flip happened. And I stopped putting so much pressure on myself. And I think it was so good because he opens doors. All I got to do is walk through them, right? So the darkest part of my life became one of the things that I look back on all the time, one of the things I share all the time with people. And I let them know, like, hey, that moment, it's up to you. You could use it for something to make it something great, or you could stay in it and just be a victim of it. It's up to you. You could be a victim or you could be a victor. It really is that simple. But in order to be a victor, you have to trust the person who's brought you there. And at that point, I believe God had brought me there for a reason. I trusted him. I walked through the steps. I went through the trials. I saw all the stupid comments on social media about how this guy's done. He should retire. I saw the repeats of me getting KO'd. I saw it all. I looked at it. I didn't look away. I looked at the worst parts, and I just pushed through. And I remember I trusted God's word, and I just pushed through, and then now I'm here. I can share that moment with people, and I know there's a lot of people out there who go through worse things than I do. So like, if I can share that with people, I know when they hear it, they see a little bit of the light too. And that light is not me. That is God. That's what I tell people. Like, just because you're going through a dark moment, it doesn't mean you're not supposed to be there. It doesn't mean something went wrong. It just, sometimes it means this is God's way of showing you who He is and how good He is.
Man, that's actually, that's touchable. That's amazing. You know, like I really want to hear, and then, you know, like, because, man, that's beautiful. You know, I believe that, like you said, you know, I believe on that too. You know, like that to you fully grow. I actually went through some, you know, very similar, and we talk about this. You know, God, I believe too, they brought me to the desert.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm still searching to be, you know, like, because, you know, like, you inspire me, you know, like in many ways, you know, like, and then especially like on this, you know, like I thought about so much about you when I was going through like what I went through, but it's just, you know, like it's speechless to hear that, you know, like I think that is the testimonial that you share with a lot of people, and then to people see that is just amazing, you know. And then I believe, you know, like when you go in the dark place, you know, like you realize that it's not about you, you know, like, and then like you said, you the one to choose to stay there, you know, and then try to get out on your own or find, you know, the way out with God, you know. But like, that's beautiful. And then that's great, man. Marvin, you know, like, you know, like, I ask this everybody, you know, like, not only now I doing podcasts, but I like to ask these people, you know, like, because I believe like there is a turning point in everybody's career. I don't know if you have that yet, you know. Have you ever have like a huge setback that it put you down the way that you, like, obviously you're very young still, you know, but like, have you ever been down the way that you thought like, okay, this is it, you know, like, I have to make some change to get out of this, and then, you know, like overcome this and become better? Because for me, with the jiu-jitsu athletes that I work with, you know, the ones that became champion one time, many times, they only became champion when they overcame something. You know what I mean? Like before that, they were doing good, they were doing okay, fine, winning. But when there was a twitch point, the way that they rised, it was when they have to overcome an injury or like a mental broke down, you know, like, and then obviously, you know, like we want to be strong. I'm not talking even about mentally, but like can be like a physically, it's something like an injury. That is something that you're like, man, this is going to be hard. But then when you overcome, you're like, you're a different person. Or you haven't faced that yet.
No, I think in my journey, like, and I don't say in a bad way, but I think the struggle, it's been pretty constant in a sense, and it started from the beginning because, and I questioned myself a few times where I'm like, man, like, is it really this the way that I have to go through? Because it's so full of like obstacles. Like nothing was like, I always say this when they ask me, like I always had to like work to get the work. Like for me, doing 2 hours to get to the training was really literally nothing. Like I remember like leaving the family at 18 years old, especially coming from where I come. It's like, it's a small town in the north. Like everybody stays there. Like it's hard to understand this. Like, you know, like even all the Italians that go around, they're pretty much mostly from the south. There's more of an immigrant kind of like a mentality. Like you don't really like I barely see people from the north, you know. But just to say, like, it was very hard to like, I had to leave my country, like, and I have to leave like my family, and like barely even knew like another language and stuff like this. So, and then I had a few losses. I remember like my first loss in London, I pretty much broke down. And I'm like, this is like I'm 20, and then it happened again a couple times. But like I said, I had these turning moments. I had like a few turning moments. I didn't have like a massive one particular one, but I had these turning moments where I'm like, this time, yeah, I wanted like basically to stop, and then 3 days after, I'm like, man, like what do I do? Like, I know I know I'm not gonna get like a 9 to 5 job, and I know I like fighting, and this level of intensity, this level of competitiveness, I won't find anywhere else. And yeah, I think the key of everything here at the end of the day is like to not stop, and that's what I did. So basically, I went back to the gym, put myself back together, started training day by day, and I remember one thing that I told myself. It was like, no matter what happens, I'm not gonna stop training. It's gonna get me somewhere at one point. It's gonna get me somewhere. I don't know where, but it's gonna get me somewhere. And then slowly, I always like raise the standard. I always had like a big dreams, but like if you think too much ahead, sometimes you lose yourself. So yeah, I think like and it's crazy because I was always making the mistake of sometimes like comparing myself of like like this guy like have the gym next to his house and he can stay with his family and he can just go and train. But then I seem like losing other battles in life, and I'm like, oh shit, you see, I didn't have those things to go against because I faced them before. And so everybody have their own journey, and this is something that we have, I believe, something that we have to constantly remind us that to not compare us to others, you know, because everybody have their own journey and everybody goes through their own struggle. And at the end of the day, if you don't stop, at the end of the day, yeah, you'll come out the other way and you'll see the light and you'll overcome it. And there's this thing I've seen it. It's cool. Like it's like this Stoic quote that is like amor fati is like love your destiny, and I keep reminding myself that because it is true. Like you have to just love your own destiny because that's it. Like there's nothing else to do, and that puts you at peace. I think, you know.
No, definitely. That's actually interesting what you said. You know, like because it's I think it's something that is so normal in the world. Compare ourselves, you know, like we compare ourselves like since we are young. You know what I mean? You can see my kids compare themselves, you know, like to others, right? I think compares like it can be like something. Okay, like this person is right here. What this person did to get there. And then you kind of like build something around the work to get there. Obviously, everybody's journey is different. But one thing that you said that is very important to people understand is this, right? Everybody has their own battle. We never know. Like you said, oh, this guy has the gym like just right next to the house. Doesn't need to drive. And then you go deep. You don't know what the person you don't know if the person has an injury right on the moment. You don't know if the person it's just crazy because one thing that I always sometimes I have this discussion with people. I don't believe in easy way.
No.
You know what I mean? Like when people one time I
You
was
gotta
having,
build this somehow.
yeah, one time I was having a discussion with a friend and then he was telling me no, it cannot be only the hard way. I'm like, tell me somebody that's successful, they go on the easy way.
If you have a guide, it can be a bit easier maybe.
Yeah.
It can be you can be like guided and to avoid some mistakes. That can happen, but there's no easy way.
I don't
It's
think
never
so.
gonna be an easy way.
At some point you're gonna be
What
like,
you put in, you're gonna get out.
Exactly.
Whether you run 20 miles or you walk 20 miles, there's no easy way of getting through those 20 miles. You know,
Yeah.
you still got to get
Yeah.
through them. So I agree. I don't think there's an easy way. And I remember listening to a interview with Denzel Washington, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, "Comfort is the greatest enemy of progress." And I remember, I don't know why, but it never left me. That is the one thing. I never watch any, like, I could care less what celebrities have to say. I've watched a few, and unless they're funny, I just kind of ignore them.
Denzel Washington is cool though.
But when I heard him say that, and man, that was one of those things like, oh man, that's real. This guy is real. So I remember just that stuck with me. And I when I make decisions, I always try to see, hey, am I comfortable? Because if I'm comfortable, I might be in the wrong place. I have to make sure in terms of training. Well, I want to be smart with my training, but I can't be comfortable with my life, with my family. I I want to do the right by them, but if I'm also comfortable, something sometimes is wrong. Like, hey, if I'm spending too much time on my phone, or if I'm doing something that, like, just hanging out watching TV instead of spending time with my daughters or my wife, listen, that's the same thing. That's, again, your comfort is getting in the way of the progress that you should be making with your wife, with your daughters, with whatever, or with your other family members. So comfort is great until it's not.
No, I hate comfortable, to be honest with
It's
you.
a trigger for people like us. It's a trigger.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh shit, it's comfortable. I gotta do something.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's actually right to be like at some point, and I said it just because I know you guys and I know myself too. Sometimes we have to stop ourselves to like doing more because it's actually gonna like do worse for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the 90% of the time, comfort is definitely. I mean, for me, it's a trigger too. Like if I don't do something, like I'm like shit, I'm doing nothing. I gotta do something.
Man, you know, like I was here like pretty much like 4 or 5 months inside the house, you know, like, and then I think I walk around this house here miles and miles. I put miles of walking here, and then, you know, thinking, right, contemplating about, okay, should I be comfortable now, you know, like,
Yeah.
and then, you know, like I begin to get better, right, and then I begin to like, you know, like I begin to get better, and then I'm like, I begin to see all the opportunities to make me uncomfortable, right? Yeah. And then I just, you know, like it's just stronger than me. I just threw myself to be uncomfortable again, you know, like, and then I'm like, man, to me, to be honest with you, for me to be alive, truly alive, I have to be uncomfortable, you know, like when I'm like, you know, like when thing is going too smooth, I'm afraid. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, man, that's too good to be true. You know what I mean? Let me make a mistake here. Let me
Yeah.
you know, let me do something. Let me do something that's gonna trigger me to be worrying about something. You know, but you said something that is actually right. You know, at some point you have to. And then I'm actually trying to learn to be like, because for me, even like going on vacation with my family, and then like kind of like a reset is hard, because at some point that I'm there. And then I'm sitting, and then I'm like, wait a minute. I'm in this big house here. I'm doing nothing. Wait a minute. This is not good.
Yeah, somebody else is doing something.
You know, like somebody, exactly. And then I'm like, and then I have to do something. But I agree with you, Marvin. At some point, you have to
Sometimes
shut it down and then find this balance. I haven't find yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm looking for, and then I hope that I'm finding. You know?
I think
My
the
wife
only
will
way.
be very happy for that.
Yeah.
No, I think no, but I haven't either. But the way I kind of deal with this is like, you put down a plan, and you execute the plan, and you know if you're executing the plan and you have a time where you can rest, then you have to rest too, because kind of resting is also part of the plan.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's not just because, you know, doing more is not always doing better. and stuff.
Exactly.
So
It's
like,
true.
it's just, and that's why you put down the plan before, ahead of time, when you're like good and you're like centered and stuff. You're not like high or low in emotion. You just put down the plan, you start it with your team, and then you just execute like a machine.
when you guys talk about this, it makes me think about my last fight. The comfortable thing would have been, you got to go there early because of the time change, right? Go there with your team and get settled in, get used to the time change, and, you know, do your training, get ready for the fight, go fight. I was like, that is the comfortable thing. Maybe it is the right thing, but I'm like, I want to miss out on my kids. I want to miss out on my wife. I told my wife, you get your ass up. You're coming with me, you know? So I take she was 18 months at the time, 17 months, my daughter. I take her with me, and we go on this 20-hour flight. And like, I get there. At first, people are like crazy when I told them I'm taking my family. And then I get to the fight, the week of the fight, the hotel.